Viewing or listening to this podcast confirms acceptance of the disclaimer visible on your screen or found at authorscott.com/podcast. Welcome to the Regaining Health and Humanity podcast. I'm Dr. Scott Johnson, your guide on this journey to natural well-being. Here we explore evidence-based insights, revolutionary breakthroughs, and powerful health strategies that not only inform, but inspire change. Together, we'll uncover the mysteries of human existence and unlock the secrets to thriving. This podcast is more than just knowledge. It's your catalyst for unleashing extraordinary potential. Get ready. Your journey to boundless health and happiness starts now. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Regaining Health and Humanity podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Scott Johnson. We're turning our attention to a topic that affects every woman, yet is often misunderstood or overlooked. That topic is hormones. From mood swings and energy crashes to fertility and metabolism, hormones play a powerful role in nearly every aspect of a woman's life. So whether you're navigating your fertility years, postmenopause, or anything in between, this episode is for you. To help break the silence, bust some myths, and empower you with real, practical knowledge, I've invited Lauren Busch to the podcast. Lauren is a mother and nurse passionate about helping people find true health. She is married to her high school sweetheart, John, and they are the proud parents of 9 kids. While experiencing a health crisis with one of their daughters, Lauren found the need to look outside of traditional medicine and was drawn to natural solutions. For over 15 years, she's worked in hospitals, care facilities, and started her own businesses. She's traveled in the United States and internationally, speaking authentic truths about her own health journey, empowering families, and helping people command optimal health for their future. Welcome to the show, Lauren.
Thank you, Scott. I am so excited to be here.
I want to start by setting up what I think is probably a pretty typical scenario. You go to your doctor because you feel something is wrong, and it may be hormone related, only to be told nothing is wrong and your hormone labs are all normal. One problem is that standard lab reference ranges for hormones are often quite broad. They're really designed to identify overt disease rather than subtle imbalances that can still cause significant symptoms. So you might be within the quote-unquote normal range, but not at an optimal level for your body. I also think we fail to teach women about the hormonal fluctuations they can expect during the month and during their lifetime. So let's start with the basics. What are the key hormones that regulate a woman's reproductive system, and how do they fluctuate throughout the month? I particularly like how you explain how these fluctuations manifest in physical and emotional changes.
Absolutely. So I think that one of the shortcomings we have in our current system is women actually aren't educated on how their own body works. And I think that instead of embracing the fluctuations that we experience in a month, we instead blame them, or we just say, oh, this is PMS, or this is just being a female, or we just are labeled more as maybe temperamental. And the reality is that during a month, we have multiple hormones that are kind of taking control of the wheel, and they all have a lot of benefits, and they have aspects of them that maybe there are personality traits that are less desirable if we're trying to lean into at different times in the month. So the main hormones that we talk about for women are estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Women don't value testosterone enough. It's incredibly valuable, women, and they fluctuate throughout the month. So the very, very start of a woman's cycle, meaning the first day of her period, actually all of her hormones are incredibly low, which is the reason why we don't generally feel so great, because everything is very down. And then as we complete our menstrual cycle and we go into the beginning of the month, our estrogen levels rise. They start to fall about mid-month. We get a good, nice bump in testosterone mid-month. As we move into the second half of the month, we'll see a huge bump in progesterone and another small bump in estrogen. Going back to your first comment about the testing, if a practitioner didn't receive additional training, because honestly, in medical school, unless you went for OBGYN, you weren't taught how to optimize hormone. And so you would just randomly send a woman to test on any day of the month. And so now we have a very inaccurate picture of what's going on. I usually tell women the optimal time to have your hormone levels tested is actually around day 21, because it's when we should see the peak of progesterone. Conversely, if you test at a different time of the month, I'm going to see progesterone is low, and it should be low, but I never get to see how high it should get. And at that same time, I'm able to see that additional small bump in estrogen. So I'm able to see kind of how they play together. Progesterone and estrogen are good friends, and they have a very special relationship. And so when that relationship is out of balance, even if levels look decent, the ratio of them compared to each other now has an additional play to come into factor.
Right. The hormone system, I don't think people really realize how tightly it is controlled. And when one of them gets out of balance, all the rest of them are trying to compensate. They're going, what's going on here? I need to change this and change that. And then pretty soon you're just like crazy hormone levels all over the place that becomes really problematic.
Absolutely.
What are some of the most common myths or misunderstandings about women's hormonal health that you encounter in your work?
I'd say, for one, again, women aren't taught to embrace their hormones, of what the blessings that they bring is. And so I think that any time that a woman experiences something that is uncomfortable, either emotionally or physically, we blame the hormones. And instead of understanding that a lot of those discomforts that have been written out as normal are actually just common. We don't support our hormones well enough. We don't live in sync with our cycle. The lifestyle choices that we make, the foods that we eat, the amount of sleep we get, the chemicals in our environment, they're all impacting our hormones additionally. And so because we have all these extra things come into play, and instead of regulating them or teaching us how to be more empowered in our lifestyle and the choices we make, we just write it off as being a woman is a painful, hard experience. And that's the story that we pass down generation to generation. And we live in an environment that is built on a 24-hour clock, which is a man's hormone cycle. So being a woman on a 28-day cycle, a lot of the things that we are expected on a day-to-day basis, the cyclical nature of jobs, of our weeks, of the way we calendar out, we're going contrary to where our hormone levels are. And so it comes with a cost hormonally for women. So I'd say probably not realizing the impact that hormones have, that our lifestyle choices have, and that the discomforts that we're experiencing actually aren't normal. They've just become common because we haven't been taught how to really care and lean into those hormone cycles.
I like how you talked about it fluctuates over 28 days, because that's something that I don't think a lot of women consider just in their normal day-to-day routines. Like if you're somebody who exercises on a regular basis, there are going to be times in your cycle that you're going to have a lot of energy, you're going to feel good, you're going to be able to exercise. And then later on, you're going to go, I just have no motivation. I'm got no energy to do what I normally do. What is going on with me? And you think that there's something wrong with you, but it's actually just the time of your cycle that's occurring. And so it's important that women understand that is something that occurs throughout the month, and you need to be aware of when your peak times are and when those lulls occur.
Absolutely.
How do hormones evolve as a woman ages from puberty through perimenopause to menopause, which is really just a single day, right, to postmenopause?
So we experience puberty. Puberty is a time that I think most of us are aware is pretty chaotic. We have these huge surges of hormones that are coming and going. The estrogen and progesterone haven't really figured out how to play nice with each other, maintaining their specific distance and balancing levels yet. So the things that we experience in puberty, that period of chaos, we actually experience it later on in life. We go through the chaos of puberty. We go through our fertile years. We typically should have healthy amounts of progesterone, testosterone, and estrogen flowing. And then we hit this period of time It can be as early as about 35. It's becoming more common to be before 40 years old, but 40, a majority is at 40 years old, we experience this moment where all of a sudden we don't recognize ourselves. And it can be anything from, I don't recognize myself in the mirror. Our skin changes very quickly. It almost feels like overnight. You're like, I just started aging overnight. Like, what happened to me? To, I don't recognize who I am as a person. The things I used to love, the interactions with people that used to fill up my cup are draining me instead. I don't understand why I'm snapping at my friend or my children or my spouse. Our experience as a human being becomes very chaotic. And during this time period, it almost mirrors what our experience was in puberty. And the earlier you experience puberty, the earlier you experience perimenopause, this zone of chaos. And so it's happening earlier and earlier because girls are getting their cycles earlier and earlier. And so what happens is we might have 1 month where we pull blood work on them and we see really good optimal ranges. And we're like, this is fantastic. Everything is fine. The very next month, if I were to draw blood, there's a possibility that all of them are extremely low, even by the doctor's standards, even in those wide ranges. And so that's why we call it a zone of chaos, because it is month to month. Your body's like, I'm good. No, just kidding. Wait, maybe I'm fine. Oh, no, I'm not. Like it's trying to kind of react to what's going on. It might overcompensate. It might be like, wow, your estrogen levels are through the roof. But last month, if we had checked, they would have been really low. And so this fluctuation period is something I don't think enough women talk about. I think the conversation is growing around it right now. It's much earlier than most women expect. We expect maybe after 50, and it's not. It's in our 40s until we achieve this moment of our hormones tapering off enough that we don't experience a cycle anymore. And usually at the beginning of this chaos period, you usually experience a shorter cycle. So instead of being 28 days, it might be 20 days, it might be even less. And that is the first drop off of progesterone. And then as estrogen also starts to taper off, then the cycle gets longer and longer and longer until you go a full year without a period. And then you hit your 1 day of menopause and then you enter postmenopause.
Yeah, it's funny when I see women at the clinic I'm at, or just talk to the women that I know, and I tell them that menopause is a single day. Then no, it's not just 1 day. I said, technically, yes, it is. It's just the 1 day after those 365 days that you haven't had a menstrual cycle, and then you're postmenopause. That's when postmenopause begins. So you get 1 single day of it. That's it. You mentioned earlier some of the important lifestyle factors, sleep and stress management. What role do stress and lifestyle factors play in disrupting or maintaining hormone balance? And what are some early signs that hormones may be out of sync?
Okay, I love this question. If you were to have a visual up of the sex hormone cascade, the very first ingredient is cholesterol. So all of our sex hormones, they come from fat, basically. And then we have I like to call them 2 different funnels. They go down. So the first side, we create progesterone, and then 2 exchanges or changes over, we create cortisol. So our cortisol, our stress hormone, actually comes from progesterone. It's like it's the precursor hormone for cholesterol. And I think that for women specifically, our body is always trying to decide, it's a survival over thriving, fixing the problem kind of thing with our body. So if we're experiencing a lot of stress, our body says, well, now would not be a good time to get pregnant. Progesterone is the pro-gestation hormone. So even if you're not trying to have kids right now, women, we want progesterone. It keeps us young and youthful and sleeping good and reduces anxiety, all the good things. But your body is saying, well, if she were to get pregnant right now, it would be a risk. There would be risk to the baby because obviously there's a stressful environment. There must be a cougar chasing her down on a daily basis, the amount of stress she's experiencing. I don't want her to get pregnant right now. So one, I'm going to take that progesterone and I'm going to convert it to cortisol to deal with the stress that we're experiencing. And then additionally, now that our body is flowing with cortisol, it kind of tells the body, I also want you to taper down the production of progesterone. And some of the very first signs that cortisol is winning and your progesterone levels are low is anxiety and trouble with sleep. Those are the very first 2. And unfortunately, it's a really bad cycle because if we don't sleep and the more anxious we are and we perceive our environment as a threat, it just kind of continues to feed that really bad cycle. Lifestyle, especially when it comes to progesterone, cortisol, it's crushes. I do want to say though, cortisol is not the bad guy.
Right.
It's the lifestyle choices. It's the exposures. It's the choice to sit in bed at nighttime and scroll on the phone and tune into the drama versus getting the sleep. If you don't have cortisol in your system at all, you wouldn't wake up in the morning. We need it to spike. It's the choices that we make all day long that the cortisol is spiking all day long. That's really the problem.
Yeah, that is something that's really important to just be aware of. That so many people do just think cortisol is purely bad, just like a lot of people think cholesterol is purely bad, which is not the truth. Your cholesterol, like you're talking about, is our precursor to making all these hormones that are important for not just women but men also. And so it's important that we have enough cholesterol for that cascade of hormones to be produced. Many women turn to synthetic hormones for relief, and there's been some recent research just kind of flipped the script on synthetic hormone replacement therapy, which used to be something that was highly associated with breast cancer and other things, but now there's some research that's actually saying that that's not necessarily the case, and it's important to have these hormones. But some people still want to choose a natural way to support their hormone balance. And so what are some natural alternatives that you have found to help and be effective in balancing those hormones?
Yeah. So no matter what choice you go down, it's totally fine. These suggestions are supportive no matter if you decide that you want to supplement in a different way or you decide you want to go the natural route. You should still lay the exact same groundwork, because if you're going to put new additional hormones into the system, your body still needs to process them. Your liver needs to be loved on to be able to support it. You still need other things for all the conversion processes. So no matter which path you're going, this applies. One is you have to go back and look at diet. As we've mentioned twice now, the precursor for all of our sex hormones is cholesterol. Having been someone who grew up in the 90s where everything was fat-free, it has done some damage.
Right.
So you want to make sure first we go back and we rewrite that story, that fat is actually not the bad guy. We want the good, healthy fats. This is not permission to live on French fries or potato chips kind of thing. We want the good fats. But first, go back and look at that. Am I getting enough good fats in my diet? Second is every conversion process. So every time something is converted to a new product, it utilizes an enzyme and a cofactor. Enzymes form from proteins. So ladies, I know we've always pushed it for men. Women, you need protein in your diet. So up the protein. It's a good priority for balancing blood sugar anyways. Then the conversion process also requires a cofactor. And when we say cofactor, we mean a vitamin or a mineral. That means that you have to have a really good supplementation routine because our diets are just deficient. So make sure that you get your good multivitamin every single day, get those in. And then next is, I can't speak highly enough to in omega. Omegas, the way that they support our cell membranes, they allow the communication of hormones. They allow the movement of hormones in and out of a cell. They allow nutrients to move in and out of a cell and waste product to move out of a cell easier. So at a time when we are not producing as much hormones, we've done enough with diet to make sure that we are supplying the production of hormones through cholesterol. We're making sure the conversion happens through our vitamins, minerals, and proteins in there. And then making sure that what we are producing is having as high a possibility of having a good outcome as possible. That's where omegas come in. So we want to make sure that those things are all happening. So we're working the system. So again, even if you decide that you want to go the hormone replacement route, you still need to optimize your systems because conversions need to happen and we still need to clean things out. Next, you have to love on your liver. Your liver produces a lot. It converts a lot. It cleans out a lot. It just does so much work. So loving on your liver is huge and important. And then blood sugar. Ladies, our estrogen actually comes from testosterone. And so to be able to optimize the output that our body is capable of, we want to make sure that the right amounts of each hormone are showing up. And the more that we eat carbohydrates and we spike our insulin levels, we actually block the conversion of testosterone to estrogen. And so some women will be like, well, I'm experiencing all these symptoms of low estrogen already. And the reality is they had all the precursors. They had all the building blocks there, but instead of being able to have enough, we blocked it with insulin production because we were not sensitive enough to insulin and our body overproduced it. So those are the first places that we want to optimize. Next is to make sure that what is being produced isn't converted into something unnecessarily. We have one is the insulin for the testosterone to estrogen, but now we have to look at the daily stressors. And so some of the biggest stressors are the people that start the day with the 3 cups of coffee on an empty stomach.
Uh-huh.
Here in Utah, we have people in line for their caffeinated soda. And I'm like, this is not where you should be at AM. This is not doing good things. It is spiking your body into an immediate stress response. It's like, we have to get up and go. Like, this is not about being healthy. It's about surviving today. And that mentality and the caffeine coursing through your system, it's causing so much chaos and damage. So don't start there. Look at the things in your routine that you can eliminate. What are the stressors that in your 20s didn't cause hormonal chaos, but now it's pushing you too far? It's taking too much from you to be able to show up as the mom, the wife, the friend, the coworker, the community person that you are. Go back and look at those things in your life that you're like, hey, this is the part that pushes me past. And then optimizing sleep. I cannot say enough for sleep. And like I said, it's kind of an unfortunate mix here. When the progesterone starts to drop, sleep becomes harder. But the more you don't sleep, the more hormonal chaos you're going to experience. So rework your sleep hygiene, rework your sleep routine, lower the temperature in your room, block out the lights, get off your phone hours before you crawl into bed. Do not take it into bed with you. And then there's a lot of amazing oils and supplements you can use to kind of support your sleep as well. And you might have to lean heavier on them than you've had to in the past, but this is a new time in your life. And so editing your routine to work for what works now for you is totally awesome.
I like that you emphasized sleep so much because that's been a strong emphasis in many of my recent podcasts with various different guests, and each one of them had a different topic, but sleep inevitably comes up as a very important part of that topic because people these days don't prioritize sleep, and we prioritize productivity. If I only sleep 4 to 6 hours, I have 2 to 4 more hours in the day that I can get things done. And so I'm being more productive, and that's better for me. But it's not, because it's eventually going to lead to a burnout. I want to shift into some specific conditions. And you mentioned insulin resistance. And I think these conditions have a strong correlation with insulin resistance and metabolism in general. But how do hormonal imbalances present themselves in conditions that are becoming very common and prevalent in today, like PMS, PMDD, and PCOS? And what can women do to reduce their impact?
Okay, so let's do the easy one first, and we're going to cover PCOS. So we all know about type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Alzheimer's has now been labeled type 3 diabetes, and PCOS has been labeled type 4 diabetes, which means that PCOS is 100% driven by insulin sensitivity. And unfortunately, as we start to age, we enter our 40s and our 50s, automatically our insulin sensitivity tends to go down. So we become more at risk. Even if this wasn't something that you were diagnosed with maybe earlier in life, you can become symptomatic of it. The beautiful thing about this is knowing that it is lifestyle and food driven, it means it's reversible and you don't need a bunch of treatments. And they're saying in 30 days, you can increase your insulin sensitivity very quickly with making some good lifestyle changes. So being able to reverse the root cause of PCOS is doable. Things like PMS and PMDD. I would say that some of the root causes or drivers for these two specifically is, well, one is we mess up our microbiome on a daily basis. The amount of chemicals that we are just exposed to, even if you are someone who is very clean, you know the impact cleaners have in your home or other toxic products. You've cleaned a lot of things out. Unfortunately, we just live in a toxic soup. It's just what our world has become. Our air is polluted, our water is polluted, all the things, right? So we have these things coming into our body that are damaging our microbiome. And one of the things as a woman that the microbiome is responsible for is cleaning out estrogen metabolites. We have the hormone we need to produce, we need to utilize it, then we need to break it down, and we need to eliminate it from the body. And when estrogen metabolites stick around in the body, they impact the body similar to estrogen dominance. And so we drive these hormonal changes by waste products not being eliminated from the body. One, the microbiome helps do that. And two, eliminating on a daily basis, which is the topic no one likes to talk about, but you have to clean it out. The toxic landfill coming back into your circulatory system, it causes a lot of damage. And what we'll see for a lot of teenagers, especially because they're not fueling their body properly, they love the junk food, especially teenage girls, where choosing not to eat several meals out of the day, trying to stay tiny.
Mm-hmm.
Our body doesn't have what it needs to make the hormones. We're causing these hormone imbalances, and it is destroying the gut. And the gut, your intestines and your uterus, your womanly parts, they're right next to each other. And so that waste product is flowing back and forth, causing a lot of problems. Additionally, we can end up causing a histamine response in the body, especially for women with things like PMDD. It's almost like an allergic response to estrogen, which I just told you spikes twice in a month. So
Yeah.
twice a month, you're like, I don't like life. It impacts us mentally as women. Again, our bodies are constantly trying to perceive, are we safe or not? And it's not just perceiving our external environment, it perceives our internal environment nonstop. And so those daily choices to what we're eating, what we're drinking, what we're not eating, what we're not drinking, the people that we're around, the work environments that we're in, our body is perceiving those threats. And so the chaos of not eliminating, not being able to produce enough, we're being left with things like PMS or overreacting with things like PMDD. So just realizing, I think for most women, knowing what the symptoms look like for each hormone that could be out of balance and what that looks like, I think then it helps women to identify. It's not that you need to have blood work done every week of the month. It's that you need to know, hey, I recognize this is related to hormones. And so this is different choices that I need to make on a daily basis.
Yeah, you mentioned elimination, and a few episodes back, I had a renowned breast surgeon on, Dr. Jen Simmons, to talk about breast health, and she emphasized elimination as well, and how that many people think that it's okay if they're just going every other day, every 3 days, and that's not the case. You should be having at a minimum 1 bowel movement a day, if not 2 or 3 is even more healthy. So it's important that people realize that that's kind of the goal, is to be there. And if you're not there, then there's usually some diet and lifestyle things that need to be adjusted to get you there so that you can eliminate properly. I want to shift back a little bit into the diet. Earlier, you mentioned things like healthy fats. Healthy fats are so important for hormones, but what other dietary factors or what foods and nutrients do you recommend most for hormonal support?
Oh, I love this question. So if we go back and we're talking about that conversion of testosterone to estrogen during different times of the month, we're trying to up our estrogen levels. So at the beginning of your cycle, meaning the day that your period starts, and I do want to speak to women in menopause or who have had a hysterectomy as well. I'm going to finish this train of thought and then go there. But at the very beginning of that cycle, we're trying to produce more estrogen. Our body's producing it to ensure that we are getting our estrogen levels up and it's not being blocked at testosterone. That very first chunk of the month, carbohydrates are actually not a friend to us at all. Not even like the really good ones. This is the time of the month we want to prioritize fiber, we want to prioritize fat, and we want to prioritize protein.
Mm-hmm.
Then when we move out of our estrogen levels have kind of spiked, so we're a day like about 10 of the month, then we could instead start introducing those good, healthy carbohydrates back into our diet. So I love things like artichokes. I love sweet potatoes. I love legumes, mangoes, bananas, whole foods. We want to bring the good fruits in. And then I would also say for somebody who does have PCOS or who somebody is like, I'm on a weight loss journey, you do need the carbohydrates, but even the order that we eat our food in can make a massive difference. So at that time of the month, when we're bringing carbohydrates back in, we want to bring them in balance. I don't want to eat mangoes 3 meals out of the day. And when I decide to consume carbohydrates, I want you to picture a plate. We'll do steak dinner because that's the easiest. There's broccoli, there's a steak, and there's mashed potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
If I eat the mashed potatoes first, the glycemic impact will be far worse than if I ate my broccoli, ate my steak, and then I ate my mashed potatoes.
Right.
So even as we bring our good carbohydrates back in, we want to make sure that we're eating them in the right order. The second half of the month, when we're producing progesterone, we actually need carbohydrates. So when I talk to women, they're like, I do keto or I do high protein. I'm like, but about that second half of the month, you need to bring them back in again in the right order. And again, it's everything colorful and everything whole foods. So it's not that here's a specific thing that you have to eat. I know a lot of people have food aversions. They have things that they're not a fan of. I'll just tell you that the more good that you bring in, the more whole foods, the more color that you bring in, the better you're going to feel, and you're going to crowd out the bad choices. and you're going to feel the impacts, and it'll be worth inspiring all the choices. So I love berries. They're very gentle on blood sugar levels. I love their bright colors, bringing in things like asparagus. I love a good sweet potato. So you can bring all those good, colorful things. The more you bring in, the more poor choices tend to kind of get waned out.
You mentioned earlier essential oils, which I have some favorites among essential oils that I feel like work well. And I don't think women realize there's been a lot of research into how essential oils affect hormones and certain conditions that are related to hormones. Some of the most fascinating research I find is that there's research showing that inhaling things like rose or geranium can actually trigger changes in your hormones in a balancing way. So this is not a negative thing that they're doing, but it's actually balancing your hormones just by inhaling these two different oils. And so there's also been good research with neroli, clary sage. There's a whole host of them. But how do you tell women that essential oils can be used to ease symptoms related to hormone fluctuations, such as mood swings or cramps or hot flashes?
So I have so many that I have a love for specifically for this topic. But if I had to say that I have a number one use and a number one oil, my number one use is I love the aromatic use of essential oils during this period of time. And the reason is that more than ever right now, statistics wise, this age bracket between about 40 to 60 is the number one time that women will choose to end their life. And it is the number one time that they'll ask for divorce. And so at a time where not only are we hormonally imbalanced, but we are most likely struggling mentally, being able to use oils aromatically to shift the mood so quickly is beyond powerful. And my favorite oil that I'm going to say specifically for this topic is bergamot.
Yeah.
It is life-changing. It's so powerful. It is wonderful. It smells good. It's not something you're going to dread putting into your diffuser. I will mix it in with my body sprays or things like that. So I'm getting it on my skin as well, just being careful in the sun and summer. It is one that has been life-changing for me postpartum. It's life-changing entering perimenopause. It has been an oil that my husband knows to keep on hand because my husband's my best friend. And when I stop acting like he's my best friend, the oil comes out. He's like, this is not Lauren. We're gonna shift this really quick. So to all the husbands out there, love your woman through this. It is very scary to be in a body that doesn't feel like it is your own, to not recognize yourself in the mirror, to not recognize your personality. And it's not that we want it that way. The chemicals, again, they're taking control, and using essential oils is taking control back. It's like, I remember who I am. I remember who you are. I remember what you mean to me. I remember that I love this hobby. I remember that I loved doing this. It just brings everything back. So I would say bergamot, hands down, one of my absolute favorite for shifting from being in a very negative space to remembering the people and the environment that we loved. Topically, my favorite is neroli. And I actually learned it from you. I think you were sharing with me some of the research around neroli, and I was like, really? I had no idea. I've got bottles at my house I've never touched. I have just learned, for me, the more chaotic things are hormonally, you need to lean into it a little heavier.
Yep.
So I don't just take a little and roll it on my wrist. I pop the top off, I pour some in my hands, I rub it, and I make sure that I get a good amount on my abdomen and the insides of my arms. So those are two that I lean into pretty hard and heavy, and I've watched major shifts for other women and same experience.
Yeah, both great oils, and they're two that I find work very well for hormonal issues and the associated symptoms that come with that. You talked a little bit about maybe some emotional challenges that people might have, and you talked about the really challenging time of perimenopause and how difficult that is for women. What advice do you have for women navigating the emotional and physical challenges of perimenopause, and then maybe even a little bit into the postmenopause,
Yeah. So I tagged something, and I want to go back to it because it goes back to this emotion. When I am speaking to women, especially women who've had to undergo a hysterectomy, they feel like their womanhood was taken from them. And I'm not really a woman anymore. I'm missing this piece of myself. And so to those women specifically on this emotional topic, I'm sorry that was the journey. That was actually my personal journey. I wish I had learned to regulate my hormones naturally far earlier. I wish I knew what estrogen dominance was far earlier. It's what inspired me to start working with women, is because I would like to have women avoid some of the things that I've personally had to experience. But for women who have had a hysterectomy or have gone through menopause, your cells inside your body, all your cells communicate with your hormones. It's not just your uterus. And those cells are continually looking for their best friends, the estrogen, the progesterone, the testosterone that was floating around. And the symptoms that you experience is those cells calling out. And it's not that you one day hit a birthday and all of your cells just went, well, she's 50 today. We didn't need those guys anymore anyways, so we're out.
Right.
They're still there searching. And so your body is still cycling, whether you have a menstrual cycle or not, you're still cycling. Your body still has a routine of trying to increase different hormone levels throughout the month. So for women specifically, learning to teach our daughters at an earlier time to track their cycle through body temperature, very empowering. As you enter this zone of chaos, learning to track your own body temperature, very empowering, because you'll know when your body is trying to increase certain hormones because it'll impact your body temperature. And there's really great apps out there that will help support that. And then those of you who've gone through a hysterectomy, if you maintained your ovaries, your body's still cycling. It's still trying. So even though you don't have a menstrual cycle because you can't, or you're just not producing enough hormones anymore, those cycles are still happening. So I would say one of the most important things is to become empowered, know where you're at in your cycle so that you know what you can lean into. Like obviously the beginning of a month when those estrogen levels rise, we tend to be a little bit more dominant. We tend to be a little bit more forward. It's probably not a great time of the month to have a critical conversation, or we're going to end up causing a little more chaos in our lives between us and our spouse, the teenagers that we're getting to raise as we're going through this chaos ourselves, and even our friends, versus later in the month, knowing that you are a calmer person, that you are less anxious, and that's probably the time of month that if you have those harder conversations and your relationships, coworkers, that things will go a little bit better. So I think that more empowered we are in knowing where we're at in our cycle, which hormone is taking control of the wheel, and what good qualities we can lean into, it reduces the emotional stress because we're doing the right things at the right time versus causing further chaos. I would also say that as we age, our bandwidth lessens a little bit. And for a lot of people, that's very frustrating because it's like, I used to be able to, but it's okay that that's not the same anymore. It's okay that our emotional bandwidth may be limited a little bit. Maybe our energy levels limited. Maybe the exercises that used to be really wonderful for us, they're not anymore. Or maybe we find out that the years of hanging out on the elliptical machine was actually really bad and we should be lifting weights instead, right? So I think knowing what are the stressors are in your environment and reducing those down and being okay with being in a new time of life. Just like we tell new mothers, don't try to do everything that you were doing prior to having that baby. Enjoy the baby. You've got a life that you need to maintain right now. As we go through this shift in life, things are a little bit different. And it's okay that it's not what we were doing in our 20s when it was okay to pile 40 things on us in a day. And maybe it's 20 now, and that's fine too. So just be okay with the transitions. Learn what's causing the extra stress for you. Look at the lifestyle choices of things that we can eliminate or up level that can reduce those stressors. And, honestly, this is a really good period of time to find your confidence in who you're around. Because I think a lot of times in our youth, we accept a lot of friendships and relationships that are pretty toxic because we're getting to know who we are. You're at that stage in life where you know who you are, and it's okay to set boundaries and decide, hey, for my own health, my own sanity, I'm going to set up some safe boundaries so that I can maintain my health and my emotional health overall. And oils everywhere. Oils in the car, oils in the bedroom, oils in the living room, making sure that all the things are diffusing. I have found that I even throw it into the filter of my air conditioner because if nothing else, that's getting pumped through there. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to remember to breathe today. It's going to be amazing.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier how husbands can be supportive for their wives. As a father of 3 daughters, and I also have a wife, I have very important women in my life. And so these conversations for me are very meaningful because I want to make sure that they're aware and that they have a better understanding. And no matter how much training I have or how much I study this topic, I can't know exactly what they're going through because I'm not in their body. But as a woman, I would like to ask you, how can partners, families, and even communities better support women experiencing hormonal transitions at different life stages?
Oh, I like this. So I think that one of the most powerful things a husband, a brother, a father, a partner can do is to know where your woman is in her cycle. Whether you're a father or as a spouse, it doesn't matter. If you know where they're at, you're going to know why they're being a little bit more sensitive right now. And maybe you can be more understanding of that versus knowing, again, the beginning of the month, this is not the time to maybe point out that she hasn't gone grocery shopping. Maybe this is the time that you run to the grocery store for her and say, okay, I can tell the bandwidth is a little limited. I would additionally say is starting to have more open conversations for men out there to understand that your hormone cycle is literally 24 hours. Every day you can expect to feel the same. Now, later in life, testosterone levels tend to drop off, but you don't deal with the same disruption happening for 28 days. Your testosterone levels rise in the morning, fall. You have this steady flow that you can become dependent on. A woman doesn't have that. And so you have to learn how to become her steady, her rock. And to do that means that you have to level up your level of emotional intelligence, that you aren't triggered, that you have an understanding that this is a moment where she might need you as your safety net, but you need to know where she's at to be able to provide that. I also know if you know where she's at in her cycle, you can help with deciding what food hits the table. You can say, hey, we're going for progesterone this month. I know that sweet potatoes are your favorite. I'm going to make sure we have it. I know you love artichoke hearts. I'm going to make sure that we have those. I got some extra fruit in the house. I can show up with your good, healthy dark chocolate. You can show up knowing where she's at, and just being seen in that way can do massive amounts of healing for any relationships that maybe weren't there so far. And then always leading with questions instead of blame. Because when, I have a 12-year-old right now, we're in that time period where I'm watching the moods shift really fast, and being able to keep our voices very low, very steady, watching her dad just lean forward and be like, honey, what's going on? And for her to have a safe place to be like, I don't even know, and just kind of erupt. And he's just sitting there like, it's okay. Like you provide that safety net for them, leading with questions instead of being like, that attitude's not acceptable. She doesn't know what's going on, right? So raising your own emotional IQ, knowing where she's at in her cycle, knowing where your daughters are at in their cycle, and then understanding that you are the calm and steady, and the womanhood of being a little bit of chaos is the spice in your world. Don't regret it. Don't despise it. We add the.
I think maybe it's giving some more grace to the women in our lives too, because we don't fully understand why they're maybe doing the things they are. Maybe they snapped back at us and that's uncharacteristic. And so maybe have a little bit of grace instead of immediately snapping back and saying, oh, you know what? I wonder if there's some hormonal fluctuations going on that are contributing to this. I try and tell my kids, I've had kids who work in retail, and they'll come and tell me, this customer came in and just ripped me apart and was so rude today. And I said, I can understand that, and that's really frustrating to you, but you don't know if they just left the funeral of their spouse, their mom, their dad. We don't know what's going on in people's lives. And so if we can just maybe have a little bit of patience and grace towards other people, that goes a long way in these relationships. But I really like the pointers that you've given on how we can help the women in our lives. This has been a meaningful conversation for me, and I appreciate you being on and sharing these tips, because I think the more we empower women with this kind of education and understanding, the better they are at living in their own bodies and being able to take control of what's going on and understanding what's happening to them. So thank you so much for being on with me.
Oh, thank you so much for the invitation. Love the topic, love the conversation. So needed.
Thank you for sharing your time with us today. I hope you've gained insights to elevate your health and life. For more transformative evidence-based wisdom, I invite you to explore my 20-plus books at authorscott.com/shop. Don't miss out on the chance to supercharge your health and guide others to a better life. Like, share, and subscribe to join the movement transforming lives. Here's to your journey toward boundless health and happiness.